Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast is here for everyone on the open mic comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter, a tutor, in fact, anybody who has any involvement in this industry. Even comedy fans who really do enjoy spending their time in pub basements watching the stars of the future. If you're thinking, I could do that, then this podcast will give you the inside track of what to expect on this crazy circuit. Today's guest is someone who has a love-hate relationship with the county of Kent, from a British Indian background, often asked if his parents owned a corner shop, but he insists it's mid-terraced, and has a supportive wife unless she's asked to wear a traditional Indian dress in a big family photo. No Adele vibes here, please. I'll let him explain that one. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Mr. Dipak Patel.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
So you're going to have to explain that bit before I get shot.
Oh, shit. So which bit?
The wife.
I have a wait. What?
Your wife in traditional Indian dress in a big family photo. She doesn't like it.
Oh, yeah. My wife she is white. She is Caucasian. So, and she's, as I say in my stand-up, she's very supportive and embracing of our like a combined mixed heritage. But she does get self-conscious about the fact that sometimes she is a white woman on social media wearing, yeah, like So yeah, she can get a bit antsy about
that. Understandable. So come on then, give us your background then. How's it all started?
How's it all started? What, my journey into comedy?
Yeah,
stand up. I guess I've always sort of been involved in comedy. It was through filmmaking. So basically, I've been making like short films since I was a teenager. That turned into sketches. I worked at BBC Comedy at one point, like making like web sketches with like comedians and circuit talent. And cool. So that's always been a hobby, working with comedians. Yep. And then, over the pandemic, my wife and we had a baby, and suddenly free time just disappeared. So I couldn't really service that hobby the same way I used to. So I thought, stand-up comedy, that'll be a less time-consuming hobby. Turns out I was wrong, but I still love it nonetheless. Much like a child, actually. So
yes, yeah. But it's because so you've the interesting thing I think about your journey that I've learned from meeting you a few times was that one of the first times I met you, probably actually maybe the second or third time I met you, it was at a workshop in London for how to handle yourself on stage and stuff like that.
Everything but the gags.
Yes, by Mr. Carl Wallace.
Yeah.
I remember making a comment to you that, how long have you been going? And you actually at that point had done gigs, but you hadn't done your showcase.
Yeah.
Which I think is...
It was the date. It was literally the day before the final showcase, that course.
That's just quite a brave step to be on the stage before the showcase, I think.
I would no, I mean I'd done gigs, so that must have been July, I think we did that. So I started doing open mic comedy last January. So I still must have, in terms of number of gigs, I was probably only in the teens by that point.
Yeah.
But it was sorry, I don't know what the point I'm trying to. It was no, it was not. I do remember that conversation, and like kind of it's. So I feel like I still get it now over a year in, which is someone will ask you like, "Oh, how many gigs have you done?" And then they'll be surprised by how low it is, and like it's quite nice because because you didn't have a performing background before you started either, did you? Yeah, no, so same. So like I've always been very self-conscious of the performance side. Like the writing side, confident with. Like I know I can direct other people. I've directed comedians, but like being able to direct yourself is tricky. So the performance side has always been a bit anxious about. So it's really nice when I can fool people into thinking I'm a lot more confident up there than I seem.
So you were doing stand up before you signed up for the course, or did you sign up for a course and then started doing your own bits?
So basically, towards the end of 2022, I decided that I wanted to do stand up in the new year. That was going to be my New Year's resolution, January 2023. And people had told me about Comedy Virgins. So that was where I was going to like sign up to first do it. But during the month of January, they have the Max Turner competition.
Yeah.
Is it? So like you couldn't book anything. And I was like, oh, I'm desperate to like get out and do it. So I ended up doing Lion's Den instead because you could just rock up.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, yeah, across January, I was also looking at courses, and I think I just applied for the Soho Theatre Lab showcase.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I bumped into Jimmy Tam, who was doing the Soho showcase. He was on the course the term before me, and I think it was maybe like the week before his final showcase, and I bumped into him on an open mic night and been talking to him about it. And I was like, oh, I was looking at that course, and he was like, oh yeah, you should definitely do it. And like turns out I think the deadline was probably the very next day, so I applied anyway, got onto it. But yeah, I didn't want to wait until I'd finished a course. I thought I was eager to get going. So and I didn't know if I'd get on the course or not anyway. Yeah. I mean, I thought it'd be a lot easier, to be honest. I think that's why I didn't do a course first. I thought, I've got this. I make sketch comedy. I've worked with good talent. Like I know I've got this. I thought it'd be a walk in the park, and oh my God, it's been like the steepest learning curve ever. It's been a very humbling experience. But yeah, I'm kind of glad in hindsight that I did start doing like open mic before the course, so I had a bit of an idea of what I'm getting myself into.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because I went into the comedy course having never written a joke, having never written or performed anything of any significance. But if you've got the background where you know you can write stuff, and it's just that it's the second part to trying of honing the performance part of it, I guess that's you have that jump on people because you actually have material. Whereas I remember turning up at the first day of the course and I was like, right, you've got to write something about this topic. just 20 seconds. And you're like, no.
Can I write about being baffled?
Yeah. And it was a real eye opener in that you get homework that was you've got 3 topics, write a sentence about each one that you think is funny or something else like that, or and it gets your brain working how to create material and where to draw from and stuff like that. Whereas if you told me back then it's just go and do 5 minutes of stand-up, I'd be like, okay, I'll write a story of what's happened to me and see if people laugh.
Yeah.
But you don't, I wanted to get onto this later, is that you don't actually, a story without punchlines is just a story. It might be funny to the group of people that you are familiar with and who you talk to, but until you have punchlines, it'll alienate a complete group of strangers. They may enjoy the story being bizarre and strange, but they're not necessarily going to laugh along.
Yeah, I find it mad that people don't seem to get that, because like a joke can be quite short, but sometimes you feel like if they don't buy in at the setup, you'll lose them by the punchline, let alone a story like where you're trying to lay the table with exposition, like, and then hope that you still manage to keep that interest for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because, it's got a really good payoff. Like, nah, it's storytelling and stand-up are two different things. I mean, there's a crossover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell. I mean, I watch some people and I see them. They tell a story about their life and about an event, but each step along the way, there's a punchline at something, and it's keeping the joke going and it's keeping the story going. And you don't realize until if you've got that type of comedian that then brings everything back round as a full circle and does a callback, that it's actually a story.
Yeah.
And that's the nice bit. I think when you get that to work, it's like, yes, I've got that. I've got the laughs along the way. I've told a story and I've got everything back. Whereas if you just go out and tell a pub story, so-and-so did this and, you know, Johnny fell asleep in the toilet and, you know,
it's like,
somebody
who the fuck's
necked off
Johnny?
with
Why are you there?
And it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Unless you were there and telling that story to a stranger. It has the whole, you needed to be there vibe.
Yeah. I read have you ever read Judy Carter's Comedy Bible?
No.
That's I love this book. It's become like my Bible. Like, it got recommended to me by a comedian called Rob Broderick, who's a Banderman. Don't know if you know him. Like,
no.
He's amazing. He improvises raps based on stuff that the audience like just hold up out of their pockets and stuff. He's brilliant. But when I used to work for, I used to work on a BBC YouTube channel. I had to produce comedy content, and I told him about like, oh, this is the channel, this is what we're doing, and he recommended this book, and it's primarily for stand-up. But he said, I think you'll find it useful for sketch writing and like how to come up with relatable material.
Okay.
And so like I read it, and yeah, it was completely transferable for sketch and video. But because it was primarily for stand-up, it piqued my interest. And that was like 2016. So I kind of felt like I got a lot of background knowledge from that made me like want to try it at some point. And it kind of, really hammered in the difference between storytelling and joke telling and how to take a story and convert that into like jokes.
Yes.
But yeah, so that, I think I never really fell into that trap of like, telling stories.
Yes.
And realizing, oh, fuck, none of this has landed. And the harsh learning curve I had was the setups to my jokes were far too long and complicated.
Yeah.
I might as well have been telling a story for how convoluted they were. So, I learned that very quickly. Like, no, get those setups as short and clear as possible.
Yeah,
then,
that's definitely one of those advocates for when you, especially for any newcomers after a few gigs, is write your set out or get it transcribed in some way, and then just go through it and take out the unnecessary words.
Yeah,
and see if you actually see how it adjusts what you say in terms of by shortening certain sentences and taking out certain words, and maybe even moving words around. Do you actually affect the effectiveness of the joke, and do you get there quicker to then get a quicker laugh? But do you also then have to think about, do you lose something by not explaining something? Because I think in all of our heads, there's certain points where you feel like when you're telling a story, every moment is absolutely important. But when you're telling jokes, not every moment is important. It doesn't matter if somebody was wearing black shoes or green shoes. It does that bit doesn't. You don't need that information. You just need the information that's going to get you to the joke at the end. Yeah,
unless it's getting a laugh or servicing a laugh.
Yes,
cut it out.
If it's bringing it along for the ride and it's going to get a laugh, then yeah, I completely agree. Because I started reading Adam Bloom's book on.
Who's not reading Adam Bloom's book?
I know. It was so lovely to have him on here when he came on to talk about it. And it's such a curated way of looking at the jokes and the punchlines and how the whole seesaws and marbles and cubes and stuff as he describes it. And I think they're kind of fascinating ways to look at things.
I love all that kind of, I love script editing. So I just love all of that really nerdy, precise theory on like, rhythm and flow and like seesaws. And
it's like the rule of three. It's in terms, I don't think anybody actually especially if you're not in comedy, subconsciously realizes it. And I know some people break the rules and stuff, but when I try to write something and I'm doing example A, B, and C, it's always 3. It's always 3. It has to be 3. Because I've got a part in one of my sets where I do 2. And it feels like there should be a 3rd. And it feels like the audience are waiting for a 3rd. And it's not there. And you kind of realize that the formula's there and the formula works. So at this stage, you have to stick to that formula, because you're not Michael McIntyre, you're not Ricky Gervais, you're not Sloss, you're not anyone like that who can have an audience in the palm of their hand for an hour and a half. You've got them for 5 minutes.
But that's your brain and your body, like, subconsciously telling you, like, because you know the rhythm of, like, you've digested enough, like, comedy and content in your life that you subconsciously know the structure. So, like, your brain is just telling you, something's missing there. I need, like, sometimes you just got to lean into that little voice and
listen to what it's saying, and it will help you along the way. And watching other comics and how they do things, and everybody does it, where you watch somebody even on the open mic circuit and you kind of go, why can't I be like that? Why can't I get that laugh and that delivery right? And what is it that person's doing that I am not doing? And it's understanding all of those little bits and the connection that somebody has with an audience and how they do it, and the skill that they've developed in their joke writing.
Yeah. I think that's one thing I like about bringer nights. It's the bane of everyone's life, but I do like going to those nights where I'm not performing and just being able to walk, because I'm constantly just, like, analysing and picking apart in my head and going, oh, like, what are they doing? How and why is that working? And and even if it's not necessarily like, and I do it in a healthy way. It's not like, oh, I wish I could be like them, or like, sometimes it's just like, I can't pull that off because that's not me, or that's not my act, or that's not my style. But it's still useful to see how and why they're doing it. And then, like, sometimes there are things which you can, like, employ that other performers are doing, and it's not, you definitely shouldn't view it as like, oh, it's a chore having to go be a bringer. Like, it's all a learning opportunity. Like, but no, I love watching other people's acts, and it's weird because I'm naturally a competitive person, and I want to be the best. I want to be better than everyone. But, like, it's what I found quite nice about the open mic circuit is I don't really have that kind of dickhead nature in me. Where I want to be better than that. I'm like, I just love watching all the other acts and kind of seeing how different everyone is, and, like, kind of, because I guess you as a performer need to figure out what your difference is and lean into that. So it's I just love how varied it is. It's amazing.
It's one of those where I'm similar to you in that I can be quite competitive, but the only people I find myself being competitive with at an open mic night are people I don't know. Oh. I want the people that I know, like yourself, Jim Hooker, Kim, whoever else is out there, and I see them on stage. I'm willing them to do well. I want them to do. I'm happy for them. They smash it to pieces, etc. Brilliant. But it's when you watch somebody who's like, yeah, they're quite good.
Shit.
Why? Bastard. But for when it's somebody you've spent time with and been friends with, you kind of, I don't know, it's a very supportive community.
Yeah, you're emotionally invested in the scene.
So it's also amazing when you speak to some people and you realise that there's a lot of people that do stand-up comedy that are performers, as in they were performers beforehand or work in TV. So they have that natural confidence when they go on, and they don't have the nervousness and stuff like that. And when you look at, I remember when I kind of first went on stage, it was just like, I felt like an absolute nervous wreck. And you just kind of like, you don't know what to do. And your mind goes into that overdrive, the adrenaline kicks in, and you start talking too quickly. And even though my first ever set I ever did, it was supposed to be 5 minutes, but it ended up over 7, and I still spoke too fast. How long that could have gone on for? If I'd been any kind of accomplishment, it would have been terrible. But so how? Kind of simple question: how many gigs are you up to now?
I think I'm on. I had my 60th gig last week.
Cool.
So I must be on. Tonight will be my 63rd. Yeah.
Nice one. So, come on then, give us your worst moment on stage so far.
Oh, that's got to be my first gig. My first gig. So it was at Lion's Den. So already you have to fucking wait outside in that little cattle pen. And this was January, so it's freezing cold. And yeah, it was just, I was in the second half along with a whole bunch of other acts who, there was quite a few of us. Who were doing their first time. I didn't know any of them. It was just by coincidence that we'd all decided to do this. And the audience was basically all just comics, other than these 2 drunk girls who had been dragged downstairs to the basement of Bar Rumba to come watch comedy. They had no interest.
No.
They just met up in London because they hadn't seen each other in 6 months. So they were having a catch up, and they'd been drinking since noon. And they were sat at the back talking through everyone's act. And the MC, in his infinite wisdom, decided, I know, I'll move them to the front row for the second half when all of these people are doing their first times. And it was just, it was but and they were talking even more now. And during my set, which was already going badly, I went up there thinking, I've got this. And I really didn't. I watch back the footage now, and I don't look like I want to be up there. I've got no confidence. I'm not looking at people. I'm looking around. And the setup to all my jokes were really long and wordy, and it just wasn't relating to the audience. I wasn't engaging with them. And then it got up to one bit where I was talking about parenting. I was like, is there any parents in the house? No. No. And then so I started this joke that I thought was going to be my big crescendo, which, if my setups weren't long enough already, this was the longest run up to a punchline I had. And then literally just before I get to the punchline, one of the 2 drunk girls, who had been surprisingly tame for me compared to how they'd been for the other acts, just blurts out, they didn't even heckle me. They just went, apparently the best parents, the people who don't want kids sometimes make the best parents. And I was like, what? What? They weren't attacking me, but I was like, what the fuck do I do with this information? And it's completely thrown me off. I'm like, what? It's my first time, so I don't know what the etiquette is here now. Do I just say my punchline? Will people remember what the setup was, or do I start again with the setup, even though it's a really long setup? So I was like, okay, I'll start again, and start trying to do this tedious setup from the beginning, and just kept forgetting and stalling, and it was getting so awkward. And then I eventually got through it and finished it, but it was I learned so much from that. So in some ways I'm kind of glad that was my first gig, because I'd rather have that reality check early on than later. So I think that was my worst and best gig in some ways in terms of educational experiences.
I always find this is something I've learned, is that when you ask the audience a question, have 2 possible answers in your head. So if you don't get the response you want, then have something else in the back pocket that will keep the joke going. Because I do a bit where I ask if anybody's had the sex chat with their parents, and half the time I get met with complete silence. So I started throwing in, so we've got an audience that was brought up on Pornhub then. And it just breaks that awkwardness of no one's answering you.
Yeah.
And you're on stage and you feel like, what does anything what I'm going to say now going to make any kind of sense? Well, you know it's going to make sense because how the rest of it goes. But you're in that moment where you've been thrown off because you at least expected one person to say yes.
Yeah.
But then you forget that you've got audiences there that are there to watch comedy, not necessarily to participate. So you can really only do that kind of stuff when it comes to slightly rowdier crowds. The kind of quieter ones and stuff, you're not going to get anything back in terms of responses. So always have something else in the back pocket that.
Yeah, play for every inevitability.
Yeah, it's almost like I work in IT, so technicalities of flowchart. Did anybody laugh? Yes,
You've got
no,
a little troubleshooting chart for call and response gags.
And it's just being aware of what's going on, and even if there's something that somebody has said in a previous set on the same night that you can then use in some kind of way, but only use it if it's not going to derail anything. Sometimes I think there's always that bit where you want to refer to something, and you think it's funny, but it doesn't fit with your set in some way. So don't try to use it and don't try to get it in at the last minute, because inevitably you'll mess it up, you'll throw yourself off, and you'll ruin your 5 minutes.
I get so tongue-tied if I try and deviate off of something I've already planned or done before. I get so tongue-tied. Like,
yeah,
I think that's something I need to get over is learning how to react and respond to spontaneous things that happen up there. But I'm sure that will come with time.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we've done your worst. You've kind of said it was almost also your best. But what's best performance? Best performance.
Oh,
is there a video you've got that you look back on or something and go, yeah, that was.
There's I guess. No. I mean, if I look back at the video, I'd probably hate it. But like my showcase last July, I have fond memories of.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I watch it back now, I'm like, no, that doesn't work. But it was because I did the Soho Labs course. So the final showcase is at the Soho Theatre. And you're like, oh my God, realistically, I'm probably never going to play that venue ever again. But like, it was a room with over 100 people and the stage is high and it's wide and the ceiling's low and you feel like a rock star up there. And like, the week, a couple of days before that, I think I got tonsillitis. So I was like run down and like my throat was fucked. And I was just like, fuck, why did this have to happen before the showcase? I was like all souped up on Lemsip and lozenges. And I was just like, and we'd done the Everything But the Gags seminar the day before where we were taught like, you need to, within the first 7 seconds of you being introduced, you need to be up on that stage and fucking attacking the mic, and the energy and the confidence that you grab that mic with is going to carry through into the audience. So like I was just charged up on Lemsip and just it was just it was a great night. And I love it when you have those big crowds and you have to just take a lot longer to let the applause breaks finish. But that was a great night, but I don't think it was like my best performance because I was still only half a year in, but like I feel like the last couple of months I've been hitting a nice groove and been having some great nights. Like I've had some good nights like on Mondays at GMB, just in that basement, like when the energy's low, I just love running up there and be like, come on, let's go. Like, it's to just inject some adrenaline into the room.
If you've never seen Dipak, he enters a stage in a very vibrant way. I think is probably one way to put it. It's all arms and legs everywhere, and it's just like if you not going to smile at that point. You're not going to smile at anything.
I was going to say, I love that room because I feel like it's the one night where I can comfortably go get up and stand at the back of the room and just start stretching behind the bar because, like, I'm going to be 40 next year. I can't get up out of a chair without limbering up. And so, like,
yeah,
before I go on, I need to just start stretching and doing stuff and getting hype. But I just love that kind of like, being ready at the back of the room and just running at the stage. I hate like being sat down all night and then having to suddenly get up and make your way through and get to the stage and still have that energy. So yeah, those Monday nights I love. And recently I did Queer Comedy Club and Comedy Bandits for the first time of the last fortnight, and both of those just went amazingly. It just felt like everything that could have got a laugh did get a laugh. Things that I didn't think would get a laugh was getting a laugh. And so I'm riding a high this month.
Yeah, Comedy Bandits is a nice one to play.
Yeah,
because it feels very it feels comedy club, but not in a comedy club.
Yeah, I think I grew up around that area, so like it's I have a soft spot for like South London, like venues. But like I don't know how they pull those crowds in, but yeah, they get them in, and it's great atmosphere. I love all that yellow and blue branding. It looks so vibrant, and they do a good job.
Yeah, no, I do like Comedy Bandits. I've done it a couple of times now, and it's got something about it. I don't know if it's on the opposite end on the opposite scale, should I say, of other open mic nights, in that there's generally only about 8 acts on.
Oh yeah,
so it condenses it a bit down a bit more, and I don't know, it feels less fatiguing. You're never waiting that long.
Yeah.
And then when you're on and you come off, it's like, I'm not here for that long. And you've got that kind of relax, and you can enjoy the comedy. And I know the quality of the headliners they put on are generally they're on a level above some other nights as well. Yeah. So I think I did one Comedy Bandits last week, and the first half was 5 acts, and the second half was 1 act doing his Edinburgh Fringe preview. So it's kind of nice to see, from my point of view, is I went on stage and it didn't go very well. But then I got to sit back and watch somebody else fumble their way through a set, but that was clearly unprepared. But it just worked, and it was still funny.
I was going to say, because that's the worst, like when you have a bad night, a bad set, and then on top of that, you still have to sit through the rest of the night as long as it's going on for. So like kind of, it's always quite nice there. If you have a set that didn't go down as expected, at least you know the whole night's going to be short and sweet, and you'll be out of there soon enough.
Yeah, and the thing is, you also on the Bandits, you're going to go and see it sounds wrong to say a higher level of headliner, but you are seeing somebody that's preparing fringe shows and stuff like that, and it's just nice to see that. And you know, I've seen some of the people they've had on their lineups and stuff. They've done mini tours and stuff like that. So it's always interesting to see what's out there, and it's your chance to learn and forget what things didn't go so well. So let's move on, kind of thing. You know,
every day's a school day.
Yeah, that's the one thing I think a lot of comedians and open micers should take from this, is that don't just go and do your set. Go and do your set and watch. And if you can curate it and enjoy it, you'll learn, and you'll adapt to. You may not realize it, but you'll pick up on things that other people do that will help you.
Yeah, like, oh my God, there's so many masterclasses to kind of just go and sit and watch on any given night. Like, I love watching Callum Mackenzie. Like,
yeah, he comes up a lot in these episodes.
Oh, does
he? Yeah, he was there was a recent episode where I spoke with Sam Adamson about stuff, and he mentioned about Callum, and Callum in terms of his ability when he comes onto the stage as an MC, but throughout the rest of the night, he's sat there with a notepad and a pen jotting down pieces. And then they get used on the stage there and then live that night kind of thing. But he's got such a persona and a quality about himself, that a friendly guy. But it's an artist at work.
Yeah, I know, because you see him there, you're like, oh, I'm not sure if you want to disturb him or
exactly.
Like, no, there's loads of people like I love watching and studying, like Siobhan Dodd. I saw her one night. I think we were both doing a night in Peckham, and she just had this energy where she ran up on stage, was like, then just started running around everywhere, and I was just like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. So I think I told her like recently, like, oh, I think I've subconsciously ripped you off. Like that's what I'm channeling. Or like Kim Hope's another one. Like I think she's a great example of like studying an act, what they're like on stage and off stage.
Yeah,
like she's a great team player.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think enough people don't necessarily. I think it's very easy for a comic to show up to an open mic night and be in their own head and only view it as, oh, I'm getting up to test my material out or do my bit and then go, rather than go, no, we're like, there should be sort of like a team mentality here between all the acts. And when you're not on stage, it's your job to like cheerlead and keep the energy up in the room, which I think Kim does really well. Like you will always hear her laughing during people's bits, and like, and she must have had like most of the acts she's probably seen quite a few times. Yeah, but I think it's something you still have to do for the benefit of the bringers or the punters who have just wandered in. Yeah. Like I think, as an act, you're trying to create the illusion of this is the first time. All your fellow comics should be doing the same, and kind of like, because sometimes all it takes is just that little chuckle, one particular like chuckle to set then the rest of the audience off, or like loosen them up and make them feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to laugh as well. Yeah. But like, so there's definitely lots of comedians on the circuit that you can learn from on stage and off.
Yeah, I think there's also, I think it's always good to, if you're the type of person that can take criticism, I think people like that are always good to lean on to find out why. I've had chats with people and just said, look, I've got this joke, I've got this set of jokes that leads to this joke. The last joke is the strongest one, but my 3 lines that go before it, 1 hits, 2 hits, 3 dies, but then 4 is really, really good. I really enjoy it, but it doesn't get the impact because you've killed the room at 3 and it's hard to get them back. And it was a case of, I need to change 3 to something else, or I think moving it would kill 1 and 2. And you're kind of in that situation where it's like, but 3's kind of key because it leads to 4. I know I'm being really cryptic here, but, and Kim once said to me, the thing you're joking about in 3, I know you're joking about it yourself, but the way you're doing it isn't, it's not that it's not funny, but it's a sensitive subject. So by putting out that sensitive subject to start with, without that much comedy in that line, kills the room. Whereas if you change it to make it comedic by not focusing on what it is and something about it, it works. And I tried it. We did a backyard new act night, and I tried it that night. We literally spoke about it in the bar, and she said, change it to this, just see what happened. And I thought, all right. And I did it on that night, and it worked. And that's when you see somebody else's experience comes through, and as long as you're the sort of person that's receptive and can take the criticism and go, that's the, I know what I'm joking about, sensitive, and I know what I've changed it to is, it's not great, but it's funny, which then makes joke 4, which I think is the best joke of the lot, so much more funnier.
Well, it's nice as well because, like, again, because so many familiar faces on the scene now.
Yeah,
like people are familiar with your work, and so when they give you a suggestion, they know what your style is, they know what your like delivery is, and they're familiar with like your work. So when they give you advice, it's tailored to you.
I had somebody once say to me, after, because I've said it before, what I used to do is I used to hire a recording studio local to me, and I could go in there with a microphone and just piss about for 2 hours by myself, with a microphone in my hand, talking, chatting, listening to myself. But I stopped doing that for a little while, and I did one gig where it didn't go that well. But somebody said to me after, they said, "Have you been practicing much recently?" Knowing full well I hadn't been to that studio for a while.
Yeah,
and I think that was their way of saying, you're almost there. You need to practice because you don't gig every single day.
Yeah, I
think we've spoken about this as well between us about practice, is that I never practice as much as I want to.
Yeah,
I need to.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the production side of me. Like, whenever I'm doing sketches with my comedians, my favorite bit of the filming process is when we're rehearsing and blocking a scene.
Yeah.
And you just go through it over and over again, because that's where the magic starts. The magic isn't when the cameras are rolling and you're trying to get a take. By that point, you should pretty much know what you're doing. But like it's the rehearsals and the blocking. That's when you get to figure out like what's really working and what's not, and kind of getting the physicality and seeing if it feels natural, believable. So, and I think I have exactly what that you experience, where like there'll be basically anytime I'm left in a room by myself and I haven't got anything to do, I will just start running bits out loud, because I think there's a difference between I can't just sit there and write. Like, I have to do it out loud. I used to, because I love writing, but I've realized for stand-up, I need to kind of figure it out verbally. I need to hear that cadence and the rhythm and flow, and like kind of feel the physicality of a bit. Because the way you write out loud is different to the way you write on paper. The cadence is different. Hence why my first gig, the setups were so wordy, because I'm fucking acting like I'm writing a poem or an essay rather than short, snappy sound bites. But yeah, there'll be generally like, I'll get time during the day if I'm by myself or doing the dishes or something, like I'll just start running bits out loud. Yeah. But on the days where it's been so busy where I haven't had any time to do that, I feel like subconsciously that's in my head. Like later when I perform, like, I've not done any sort of like, it's almost like it is like a warm up, or like you're physically limbering up your lungs. Like, because I think that I think you really need, when you're rehearsing, to be able to project as loud as you can without worrying about being self-conscious and somebody hearing you. Because, I think if you practice it like, and then this is the setup to my joke, and that energy ain't going to help you when you get to the stage. At least when you're in a closed room and you're going, rah, 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 rah. By the time you get to stage, you may not necessarily have that level of energy, because by proxy of just being in a room full of strangers suddenly and being self-conscious on stage. But if you fall short of that energy, at least you'll still be well above, like kind of. Yeah. So it's like, I think, when you're rehearsing, making sure you're conscious of those conditions, I think it really helps.
Completely understand. It's that whole thing. I've said it before, is that if you like, sometimes where I would go out at night and walking the dog and I would run the set over in my head, it's pointless because I'm not saying it out loud. Yeah. It sounds perfect in your head. It's like when you go to bed and you've got something in your brain and you're imagining yourself on the stage and you're talking it through in your brain and you go, I've not stumbled on one word. Everything's come out perfect. And you've interacted with an audience member in the most perfect way possible. But the moment you say things out loud and your mouth goes dry, your lips stick together, you fumble a word, and that little fumble of a word sometimes is the thing that will then just throw you off.
Again, that's your body telling you that's a line that needs editing. Yeah, because I get very tongue-tied, and I don't know whether that's just me or whether it's like I'm self-conscious of the fact that like I don't know whether sometimes I'm going to slip into a different language, or because like my parents, neither of their first language was English,
right?
So I've always been very self-conscious of like slipping accents or going into the wrong language and such, or like kind of just my diction in general. So I find rehearsing out loud allows me to figure out that, because there's certain phrases and words where my mouth will just I can't do that. It's like it'll be a word that I can say in any other context, but in the context of that line, I can't do it. So you don't discover that unless you rehearse out loud. And those little fumbles, that's your brain and your body going, right, we need to edit that line because you can't get a good run at it. So, but yeah, unless you like, I use the shower every morning. Like that's
I was just
to do comedy. Some people might say I don't shower enough. No, but for me, I'm like, okay, shower. I am guaranteed 5 minutes.
Yeah,
where I'm standing up. I can flail my arms. I can talk out loud, and work bits out that I might not necessarily get time for at any other point in the day to work out.
Yeah.
So like, at least I know I always have that little 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'd also say there's one thing that I've came a cropper with probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now. I was lucky enough to get onto the Comedy in Your Eye set lineup one beginning of this month, beginning of April. And I was slightly underprepared for it. I'd written some new stuff or refined stuff, and I'd had it written down, and I'd gone through it all, and I'd picked pieces out of it. And the gig overall went relatively well. It was a good 6 to 7 out of 10. The last joke always gets its laugh. It got its laugh. It was brilliant. I hit great. But it was all the bits leading up to it. But I had in my head, I'll go to the pub first, and I'll sit there and I'll just run it through and get the words into my brain. And I don't know if you've ever been to the Camden Eye in Camden, surprisingly. It's a very rock pub. So if you like your rock music, you'll love the pub. But can you concentrate? Not a chance. You're hearing like Limp Bizkit and other stuff and Linkin Park going on in the background. And your brain's like, oh yeah, this is cool. No, keep reading. No, I want to listen to this music now. And you've lost that. I should have done this earlier in the day. I should have been more prepared. And it's that kind of like...
Please tell me you got up on stage and instead of doing your prepared punchline, you just started doing the lyrics to Nookie.
But no, I did my prepared stuff. But it was good. It was enjoyable. But yeah, never assume you can be that prepared at the last minute. Well, it won't allow you.
Yeah. Well, this is the other thing I find is I think the rehearsing has come out of necessity, because on any given night, I feel like once you get to the venue, if it's not in there, there's no point in doing it, because everyone's different, everyone has their method, but like I'm very self-conscious of the fact that once you get to a club, there's people to chat to and interact with. And so I try and use it as time to be sociable.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you spend the time before a gig starts going, okay, what was that bit? What was it? Once the show starts, odds are you're still probably going to be rather than actually paying attention to the other acts and giving them support. Whereas, I think you have to prepare enough that once you get to the venue and the show starts, you just have to trust your subconscious that stuff is embedded in there. And if it's not
ready.
Yeah, it's not ready. Like, unless you feel confident to sell it, it's not worth anyone else's time to hear in that condition. And like, there's plenty of times where like it's just before I'm about to go on, maybe the act before me is up. And if I try and consciously try and think, what is my set? Oh, fuck, I can't actually remember what that line, particular line is, because there's so much going on, so it's like, but I don't get thrown off by that now. I'm like, nah, it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, it will come
Doesn't matter
out.
that I can't think of it while I'm sat down here before I go on. Once I get on that stage, it can come to the surface.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, you just have to work around it. But like,
I've done it before. I started doing it. I forgot some of my set. I did a set for the very first time, kind of almost live. It wasn't improvised, but there was themes to it. And I did it, and I came off and I thought, that was brilliant. I really enjoyed that. I got a great reaction from the audience. And then I sat down and tried to refine the set. And the next time I did it, I forgot most of it. And it just went. And ever since that day, whenever I do that set again, I don't do the notes on the hand. I just write 3 letters on my hand. And each letter signifies a section. So it gives me a prompt. So that's all I need to know is that my first one is P, my next one is B, my next one is F. And it's for piss, brain, and passion. But because I know those 3 sections.
Like I want to see that on a motivational poster just with your face on it.
That's not a bad idea for a poster for next month.
Yeah, that's your Edinburgh poster sort of.
But that just helps. I think because I got burnt that night, even though the night I forgot, I actually had a lot of fun, and the audience played along with it, and it was a really good laugh in the end. But subconsciously, it's always been in the back of my mind now is don't forget the order of those 3 things, because they are crucial to your story. And so long as you remember what each one means, the rest is there. It's just getting that initial one out, and that's it. But I'm never a big fan of notes on hands, but I love the way some people play into it. And I can't remember who it is who done it, but somebody, I think his name's Scott Smith. I think it was the first time I saw it done, whereas he had notes on his hand and he looked at me and went, oh, whose handwriting's this? And it was nice. It was like I'm giving you a peek behind the curtain. I haven't quite remembered everything and it's there. Or I've written it that night and it's there. But it was entertaining. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget is that we're trying to do it 5 minutes, but we're supposed to be entertaining for 5 minutes as well. So it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah. I think, that's something I've been thinking about more this year, rather than like, I've been focusing less on the actual material. Mm-hmm. Just like, the jokes will come to me when they come. But I'm trying to consciously think more about, the audience perspective, and like kind of how do you make sure the audience is having a good time? Like how, like trying to concentrate a bit more on making it feel like a conversation with them. And like there's some nights where that'll just be easy and they are all in and game. And there's some nights where you have to like, bring them back in. But like, I think a lot more kind of consciously about, okay, what can I do? Like, how do I make this an experience?
Yeah. It feels like the first time for them and the first time for you, kind of.
Yeah.
Thing. But okay, so let's go to a little bit of a fun topic before we get into a delving into your brain. Is so things go really well. You're on the way to becoming super famous, and BBC have called you up and said, we want you to do a 20 minutes at Live at the Apollo. And after you've calmed down, they've then said, oh, what walk-on music do you want? And you go...
It would either be something from the world of early noughties pop punk or professional wrestling. Like those are like outside of cinema and filmmaking. Those are my two like creative, muses. Like I love pop punk. I just grew up on stuff like Blink 182 and Sum 41. I love the fast-paced, snot-nosed, kind of bratty, like, I think I'm hardcore, and I'm but you're not. So it would probably have to be something Blink 182 or Sum 41. I think maybe Sum 41 In Too Deep. I just like, I love like catchy bubblegum sort of and I think it's particularly In Too Deep. I just love because like, you know, I listened to like metal and emo growing up, but like there's still a bit of me that finds metal a bit too serious and like aggressive, and emo is just a bit too self-indulgent and whiny. But pop punk feels like that nice middle ground where you're essentially whining about yourself but trying to make it as infectious and catchy as possible. And I think that, or any wrestlers in intro music, I would
come into the Undertaker.
I'll ride in on a little hearse, come out of a coffin,
and you get the dongs.
I just love all the pomp and circumstance of like a wrestling entrance. I think that's probably what half of the running on stage is about. I'm probably channeling up my inner Ultimate Warrior, just like, come on, ass.
You are definitely of my era. You're mentioning all these things, and it's just like pop.
Show my age.
I mean, I always loved. It's complete tangent, but this is what this podcast does quite a bit. Is one of the best music soundtracks out there for that type of music is American Pie 3: The Wedding soundtrack.
Yeah,
such a good. It's like hit after hit after hit after hit, and then they bring in James, and it brings the tone down. Then it brings it back up with something else. I can't remember the order, but I know Foo Fighters on it. Blink 182 are on it.
Blink 182 are in the original American Pie as well. I like that the soundtrack is probably aged better than the films have in terms of
100%
being appropriate. But yeah, no, that was definitely my era.
Yeah. Okay. So back to the jokey stuff then. So what is your favorite joke? How did it arrive? And has it changed over time?
My favorite joke? I don't know if it's my best joke. I know it's not my best joke. But I have a very interesting relationship with this joke because I don't understand why people find it funny. Like, so it's have you heard the joke about my, how loud my daughter is and how she wakes up every morning singing Old MacDonald?
Vaguely. I think that's in there somewhere.
So like the line is, she wakes up every morning screaming the words to Old MacDonald like it's the Slipknot cover nobody asked for. For some reason that cracks people up. I'm like, that's not even the punchline. That's still just a premise. Like it's not even an act out. But for some, like, because I originally came up with it as a much bigger bit, and I was telling some of my course mates about the joke, and they were like, the original climax of that joke bombed, even just in a safe space of fellow comedians. And people were like, oh no, I think you should just end that bit at the Slipknot bit. And I was like, okay. But yeah, so for whatever reason, that seems to land, and I don't know why, because I don't think it's a joke. It's just
it's
the
it's
visual
bizarre
image
nature.
of my daughter looking like she's in Slipknot, or like it's but it's one of those things where I'm just like, I'm not going to over question it. Like, it seems to land. I think if you try and get too cerebral with every joke,
yeah, completely,
it can, like, I mean, I think it's good to kind of like pick jokes apart and kind of go, why does this work? What's like, but like, there's some, I think that's just one joke where I'm just like, fuck, let the audience have it. Let them have it. That's what they want.
I don't like it, but you can have it.
Yeah. Who am I to complain?
I think the reason it works, it's by the time you get to, I don't know, my interpretation is that as you get to the end of that line or sentence, you've forgotten about your daughter, and you've now just got this image of Slipknot playing Old MacDonald. And then that becomes a funny bit. But then if it's left to breathe for a couple of seconds, then people's brains are going to go based on, we know kids scream and are really loud. So you've kind of fused that together without meaning to somehow. And it's just worked.
It's like, I think emotionally I have a strong attachment to that joke as well, because of my first ever gig where I bombed, and particularly when I got to that bit about parenting. I was like, any parents? No. Yep. I think that I was so traumatized from ever touching that subject again, because I was just like, oh, well, no one wants to hear me talk about parenting. But I think as I carried on doing open mic and got more confident, I kind of realized, oh no, it was just the joke that was shit. It was just my performance wasn't engaging. I can talk about that subject because it's something that is dear to my heart. So I think it was quite a nice cathartic moment to finally be able to talk about parenting again and actually get a laugh. This time it felt like I kind of exercised that demon. And my daughter has a very deep voice. For a 3-year-old girl, it's very deep and menacing, like, so and sometimes I kind of like think, oh, maybe I'm over exaggerating a bit and kind of like over it, and then like I'll wake up one morning to that sound. No, I wasn't exaggerating at all. That is literally what she it's so I don't know whether it's like whether it's the visual or the mix.
It's a bizarre nature. It's just that it's the
or whether it's the fact that I don't know whether it's like kind of, you can tell that there's an element of truth to it. I don't know whether I'm conveying more emotion and it feels authentic or what, but whatever it is, I'm grateful.
Yeah, I do. I think some of it is or a lot of it will be in the delivery as well, because I can imagine other people, including myself, saying something like that in my voice and it not working. And it might be, when I speak on stage, I've tried to improve on this, is vocalize outwards rather than talking downwards.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean? So when you've got that microphone and you say something and it's almost like that cheeky little joke that you're putting in there and you're saying it under your breath rather than going, ta-da! But saying the ta-da is the bit that gives it the whole punch.
Yeah.
Whereas it won't work.
To cue them, like,
it won't work if I say it, because even though it's a great line, the way I would deliver it just isn't quite the same.
Yeah, I had exactly the same thing, I think, because I think a lot of just in normal conversing, when I'll say something and they'll try and undercut it with a joke, but it will always be the kind of, and it just gets lost. I mean, in conversation, you'll pick it up, but on stage, it's too subtle and not clear. Whereas on stage, it has to all be about clarity. Like, the audience has to know what you're saying, what you're talking about, why it's funny, and they actually have to be able to hear it and see it. So, like, adjusting for that has been a process.
Yeah, completely. It's the mumbling part, isn't it? It's the, when I find, if you really analysed it, the point when you start to mumble is the point where you don't have faith in the joke.
Yeah.
And you just kind of like think I need to get this bit out because my brain says this bit's coming out, and then it's going to follow on with another bit. So if I need to get this out anyway, so I'll just say it, and it's out, and then I can carry on. So you almost treat it as the script rather than a performance, and that's where I think I sometimes fall victim of not having enough confidence to vocalize and say, this is the thing. And sometimes when I use the Toy Story punchline, I downplay it because it's almost an embarrassment for saying it in that situation, that picture I'm trying to show out, but it's not me dumbing down because I want to dumb it down on the stage. It's because it's part of the act. But me coming out and going, I want to tell you this great thing that I think about Toy Story 3. It can't be that. It has to be dulled down, but it has to be dulled down, but still clear.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes where I find it's hard, is that when I dull things down, my natural instinct is to look downwards. And when you look down, you crick your neck, vocal cords, and it's weird things like that play around.
Yeah.
And
like,
I was going to say, I've got a friend of mine who, when I watch him do stand-up, I think he's so good. But he's constantly adjusting his glasses to bring them up to the top of his head. But he's not doing it because the glasses don't fit. It's because he looks down when he tells a punchline. And then him going up to move his glasses then becomes a distraction every time because he does it so often.
Yeah. I think, like, that's what's so important to film your acts, because you don't realize what you're doing subconsciously until you watch that footage back.
Yeah.
And like, because I have the exact same thing. I've got like a bit where I'm joking about how people struggle to pronounce my name.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, they see my name and they're like, ugh. But like, even just doing that, I've watched it back on video and go, oh, you lose half of my face because I'm looking down. So I need to adjust that staging wise for like, just bring that up to here. But I love that whole process of figuring. I mean, again, I don't know whether that's like the video production side of me, of like directing a performance, of like kind of just watching the tape back and going, right, that doesn't read well for camera or the audience.
Yeah.
So you need to, like, my best little hack I've stumbled upon completely by accident is my wife has insisted on putting a mirror in the hallway just around the corner. Yeah. And like, we put it up and then we're immediately like, oh, we feel really self-conscious because now when we're all the way down the corridor and in the kitchen, the back you could still see yourself, like, which we never used to be able to do before. But I found it really useful for like, if I'm practicing or rehearsing, because it's the longest bit of distance and depth I've got in the house.
Yeah.
So I found it useful for rehearsing sometimes, because how I look in the mirror at a distance is how I look on stage to someone in the crowd at the back of the room. So like, you know, sometimes if you're rehearsing on camera in front of a mirror close up, that's great for seeing what you're doing facially or up here. But I don't think you necessarily appreciate or realize what your entire body is doing physically until you see it from a distance. So I found that quite useful for rehearsing.
I think the mirror thing is just put something in my head now, is that what's really good about the mirror is that for somebody like me who does the looking down part too often, if I can't see myself in the mirror, I've realized immediately what I've done.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure that I do a performance in front of the mirror that I'm always looking up at.
Yeah. I did exactly the same thing. I used to get very self-conscious and kind of like, look away from my own reflection. Like, and that is exactly what I do with people when I'm talking, like kind of look away. But like, yeah, as soon as I clocked that, did the same thing as you, like consciously trying to rehearse without breaking that eye contact. And then on the night, you will look around at people and direct the performance around the room. But there's a difference between trying to clock as many different eyes as possible and just avoiding eye contact completely. And you don't realize that you're looking down or away or up. Like, you can still do that, but do it deliberately and consciously, because it adds to the performance or sells a joke rather than because it's a nervous tick that you're doing subconsciously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is why I wanted to have you on here, because I think the technical aspects of comedy is so fascinating, but there's so many, especially people that may be thinking about coming into this, they don't think about, they just think it's getting up and telling a joke and making somebody laugh.
Oh yeah.
But not understanding why they laugh is the thing. And ultimately, if an audience member laughs, that gives you validation in that what you've done, whether it's vocally or visually, has worked. And if you don't know what that is, watch the take back and work out what it is, because that works.
And and that will be different for everyone. Like, someone on my course, Stephen AK, he is the loveliest guy you'll ever meet. But he sometimes gets in his head about like the fact that he's like, I've not written anything, or I haven't had a chance to write down all that. But I don't think that he always needs to as a performer, because he's got this incredible stage presence and he can find these interesting sounds, these verbal cues or words, and he can repeat those and they just get more and more of a laugh. Whereas in someone else's hands, in my hands, if I said the same thing over and over again, it would get less and less laughs. But he brings this energy. And like, we both did Comedy Virgins last week, and I think he felt completely unprepared going in.
Right.
But he got the loudest reaction and the most consistently loud reaction all the way through the set. So like whatever he's doing is working, and that just needs to be his method. He doesn't need to compare himself to other. He doesn't need to compare his process to other people's process. Like, oh, they sit down and write all the time, or they meticulously rehearse, or they like, whatever he's doing is working for him. Yeah, and the proof is in the audience reaction. Like,
it's almost, I find, jealousy when it comes to people like that, because it's not that they don't have to rehearse, but they can genuinely create 50% of their set on the fly, on the night, and it's different every time. And if they are the person that will record it, they can build a catalogue of stuff to use, rather than just having one or two bits and pieces here and there. But I always say that I've got 2 5 minutes, or I can have 1 10 minutes, because the stories are intertwined and they are sectioned. So I can take one bit from one and move it into another and stuff like that. And I think that's a really useful thing to be able to do. Obviously, making sure you tie them in and they actually make sense. But having an armory of lots of little different sections or different 5 minutes, and being able to recall which one of you want whenever, depending on what happens in the night, I think is such an amazing skill. And if you can do it on the fly,
oh yeah,
it's just like, because when you watch somebody like Kim, with the energy and stuff that she's got, you don't feel like you're watching somebody who's got a script in any way, shape or form.
Yeah.
Because it's so fast paced and your brain goes, nobody can write this. This is just some madcap lady going, ah! And it's funny every time you see it all the way through. But it's such a unique way of putting it out there. It never feels like it's pre-prepared.
That's why she's a great person to watch. And especially if you've seen her multiple times. Like, again, I've heard that line, but it sounded off the cut, or it looked like it was impromptu. Like, how did she do? Like, what is it? Like, how did she deliver it? And like, I mean, to be honest, that's all the so many acts where you're just like, I can watch them over and over again do the same set, because when they do it well, they make you think it's the first time, and like the audience's reactions add to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've listened to the latest pod that's been out. Is Sam Adamson's?
No, not yet.
There's a bit we talk about. He's got a Beat the Blackout video out there, and it's such a good set. It's so well done, and it never feels like it's all little sections that I can't remember if they actually all tie in at the end. I don't think they do. But all the little sections and the bits in there that go towards it are of the moment and keeping with what is him, if you know what I mean. It looks genuine. It looks real, but it doesn't look rehearsed. It has that natural ability to just kind of go in and out and do this and do that. And it's that whole thing where there's one bit in it where I think somebody's phone vibrates or something whilst he's on the stage. He says, "Oh, that's my butt plug," and it brings it into the moment because that's clearly not rehearsed.
Yeah,
but it may be a standard answer he has if somebody's phone does go off. But in that moment, it was just
he's reacting to the room and kind of
and understanding what's going on and who to be focusing on and who you think are the people that are going to be the ones that laugh out loud rather than the as I call them, the shoulder chuckles.
Yeah.
You know, we want the ones that are vocal, not the ones that shoulders are going 10 to the dozen, but there's no noise coming out of them.
Well, that's really important as well to kind of like on any given night, if you're a new like comedian, just look around the room and figure out who the punters are.
Yeah.
And who's giving the most. And just try and direct your performance towards them. Because like, I think it was Rob Ash who told me like, on your average open mic night, don't worry about killing the entire room because most of the room is going to be other comedians who are either heard your stuff or they're in their own head. Just try and figure out who those few people are.
Yep.
And see how much of a pop or a reaction you can get out of them. So like sometimes you might only get 20% of the room laughing, but it's the right 20% of the room that you want to laugh. So it doesn't feel like a failure. Whereas I guess if you don't have that bit of knowledge, you'll do a set and be like, oh, 80% of the room didn't laugh.
Yeah.
I must be shit. Like, so I think, so like,
I think the term I've kind of looked for is riding the wave of laughter. In that, if you're watching, you've got that group of 3 or 4 people on a particular table that you know they're laughing at what you say, and then their laughter becomes infectious and moves on to somebody else. So you can almost I've never got to this stage of being able to do this, but when you're so familiar with your set and what you're doing, you can dip in and out. If you can segment part of your brain to look at that, okay, I've got that table laughing pretty much with whatever I say, and now this next table are laughing. If I can get them to laugh as well, that may then bring the next people along because you know that the first table's already got it.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And you start moving along the audience, kind of, you're bringing each person in as you go along. And when you do that, then the room starts to fill with laughter and joy and happiness, and you get more and more and more of the room all the time.
Figuring out where those gaps are, and plugging. Yeah, because I guess sometimes you don't want to risk, or you get those rooms where that one table was laughing and they will be the only table laughing to the point where it makes the rest of the room feel awkward. Or like, I was like, all right, great, I'm so glad they're having fun. But I guess, that's an art in itself, trying to figure out, right, how do I spread that around?
Yeah, how do you make that laughter infectious and stuff and try and make it come about? I mean, I'm not saying any of this is easy. I've never been able to do it.
No, but it's good to be mindful and conscious of it.
Yeah, because there is that moment where you go to a comedy night and somebody tells a dark joke and there's this butt clench in the room of everybody going, am I allowed to? And it needs one person just to go laugh, and then everybody then relaxes and kind of goes, oh, okay, we can laugh at this. And it's that kind of,
or even acknowledge that the room feels awkward.
Yeah,
like just pop that tension whatever way you can. Like
start telling knock jokes.
Yeah, or the other way.
No, it's that. I think that's the whole ethos and technicality behind just saying some words, I think it's so underrated. And I think it's more coming out more and more nowadays. In the olden days, you'd have people, just coming up and telling one-liner jokes and stuff, which it's fine, it's great, it works. But that's the sort of comedy that people were used to at the time. And now I think in the age of especially YouTube specials and Netflix specials and stuff like that, you look at some of the not so well-known comedians and you see the effort they're put into the shows and stuff like that, and everything works, and it works for a reason. It's not necessarily that the jokes are absolutely killer. It's that the joke works with that reaction and the way you stood and the way you delivered it. And trying to cram that into like a little short 5 minutes for us is so difficult.
It's good. It's sort of like someone referred to it as a gym. Luke Nixon, who runs Camberwell Comedy Club, it's like, oh yeah, it's like a gym. You just come in to work out and figure all these little bits out. And everyone will be at different stages of the journey, but you're learning all of these new little kind of tips and tricks and trying to put together something that works for you.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating. It's like doing a Rubik's Cube. Like you just, every night you're just kind of going,
yeah.
Does that work? No. That's close. That's almost there. Like I don't know whether it ever actually becomes complete or not, or whether that's just,
who knows?
That's the game.
So what's your future plans for the rest of the year then?
My future plans for the rest of the year, comedy-wise? I think, going on holiday in May, going to sunny California to visit family for a wedding. And then when I get back, I'm going to try and cut down the amount of gigs I do.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to consciously do quality over quantity.
Yeah.
I'm a bit scattergun with my approach of like, just book the nights, not really keeping a tab of how many nights I'm doing. And then suddenly I'm like, oh shit, that week's all booked out, plus nights where you're a bringer. So I think this summer I'm trying to just focus on going on the gigs that people have recommended and that. And I think just try and work up some new material. I feel like the last couple of months I've been refining the same bits, and I'm getting very confident with it. And it's like, I enjoy performing it, but I think, I need to kind of take that safety net away of material I'm familiar with and see if I can take that same stage confidence and apply it on new material with conviction. I think that's my challenge for the rest of this year. Just keep building up material.
That was an appropriate word, challenge.
A challenge, yeah.
Yes. As you are a listener, you will know what's coming up. For those of you that are new here, I like to set every comedian that comes on here a little challenge, which is to tell a joke from a book called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid Finch. I want the comedians to pick their own joke, tell it on stage, however they want to, if they want to worm it into the set or if they want to just do it on its own, but film it, put it
Do you get paid to plug this book?
I've tried finding this guy. I don't know. It's nowhere. Like a name like Sid Finch, I'm not sure if it's a pseudonym or if it's, I think I found out that he's an Australian author or something.
You're going to give him a second wind of, like, he's going to be like Adam Bloom. He's going to be doing like seminars and workshops.
Yeah. But the trick with this book is that, with the jokes is the comedians can pick their own joke, but they have to pick it by page number. So it's completely random. I know it's a bit of plagiarism, but if you pick a page number that's already been picked, we go again. So Dipak, give me a number. I'm assuming you're going to take part in this.
I don't feel, I'm very easily peer pressured, so
good.
Whether I want to or not is irrelevant.
There's been a few people that have done it already. So give me a page number between 5 and 95.
95. Let's start with the end.
It's gone for the last joke. Oh, you picked a long one.
Oh, forgot. Oh, because my setups aren't tedious and laboured enough.
Here you go. This is the joke I want you to tell on stage. Live, film it, tag us in. It's a woman enters a circus tent and asks for a job. Well, says the circus manager, what can you do? I can do a great impression of a bird, she replies. Says the circus manager, so can a lot of people. Oh, well, says the woman as she flies away.
Oh, my God.
That's not bad, actually.
Yeah.
It's wordy, but it's not bad. But I would say, if you want to shorten it, go ahead.
I was going to say, what creative license do I have? Is it verbatim or?
You have any creative license as you want. You can. I've done mine. I was challenged to do one by somebody, and I've done mine, and it's out on Instagram.
Who were you challenged by? This is your podcast.
I know. I was challenged by Dominic.
Is this you rehearsing in the mirror? Like, this guy called Mark just challenged me.
No, I was challenged by Dominic Burrell, who runs Comedy in Your Eye.
So he finally had it. I was like, I've seen you do this to so many people. Now it's time you had a taste of your own medicine.
Yeah. So he challenged me to do it at his night. Which I thought was kind of a nice little trick. So, yeah, I did that. And my joke was, why did the chicken cross the road?
Why did the chicken cross the road?
Beats me, but it looked like it was up to something foul. You've got to bear in mind, right? I've been wanting to get onto Comedy in Your Eye for a year since I started. It's the first ever night I ever applied for, and I never got on it. And I've got to do one of my... It turned out to be pretty much one of my opening jokes was, why did the chicken cross the road?
It's karma. This is karma, Mark.
But I built it into the set. I'll let you go and watch it. But the premise on it basically was something along the lines of me and the wife are very yin and yang in that the kids, our sense of humours don't match, but kids have my sense of humour. So my daughter came home from school one day and told me a joke she heard. And it was that joke. So
no, you've scapegoated that. You go, oh, my daughter told me this.
I can't say Sid Finch told me that, but the funniest part about it was it got a really good reaction, and I kind of did like a little, that's my girl kind of thing at the end of the punchline, and everybody laughed. And one of the comedians at the end went, I really love that joke about the chicken crossing the road. I said, how old was your daughter when she came up with that? And I didn't have the time or the heart to say. It was made up. That bit was the creative part. So feel free to... I will send you a picture of the joke so you've got it in its entirety.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And see how you can fit it. It doesn't have to be a circus.
I was surprised. I was surprised by the joke. It took me a left field, so... It could have been. I think I would have preferred. I definitely would prefer the joke I got over the foul joke. I don't think I could have. I couldn't have landed that. But the circus one, I think I could do something with that.
Yeah, there is some. There's a podcast that's coming out in the very near future, and the guy has already sent me the clip of his shit joke, and it takes it to a new level.
Ooh,
yeah,
up the ante, why don't you?
Yeah, he does the joke, and then he does a callback to the joke, and the way he's done it, I when he sent me the clip, I sat there and just thought, that's what this segment was made for. Do you know what I mean? It was just so well done. It was done with such thought, and it was done in a. I like to think of. Obviously, we are as trying to be comedians is as creative as possible, but he took the premise of such a rubbish joke and done it so well, and the way he wangled it into his set at the start was just amazing.
I was going to say, did you do it at the very beginning?
He did it at the beginning and then carried on his normal set and then called back to it in a whole different scenario. So yeah, you'll see that in the next few days.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Yes. So you'll see what the level is.
I was going to say, if you ever run out of jokes from that book, you can start using my daughter's jokes. She's just started telling what she thinks is comedy. Like the other day, she came home from nursery, and I might be able to act it out with you. So yeah, she went, Daddy, you'll be Daddy in this instance. It's
Okay.
not creepy at all. I should put a hand like this for those of you who can't see. I'm just holding my fist out. Daddy, can you put your finger in here? So, okay. Yeah. She's like, okay, give it a wiggle. It's like, okay. She goes, thank you for cleaning my toilet. I don't know if this is something another kid taught her, the staff taught her, or whether it just came out of her own brain. But yeah.
Oh dear.
I might get her to write a book of shit jokes and then send that on to you for future reference if needed.
Yeah, it's actually that segment was it was born out of I had to do a 10-minute set once.
So you decided to.
So I knew I had roughly 10 minutes, but I thought if I'm short, there's something else I need to add in. So I went on stage with that book, and I then asked the audience for a number between 5 and 95. But the guy that runs the night is very much that type of joke, as in very punny and all that kind of stuff. So
was
I
it
then
Sid Finch's night you were doing?
No. So I then said to the MC, I said, and by the way, this is the joke I want you to tell next time you're live on stage. And he did it. And it's that's kind of like, maybe I can make a segment out of that.
Has anyone done it to disastrous results?
Not that I've been sent. There was Chris Alley, who was the first ever guest on here, did his, and he did it in such a good way that he kind of did he did the joke and he did another follow up to it afterwards. So it didn't stand alone. It was kind of like part of a set, which was kind of nice. It was a crap
people
joke.
are going to be building Edinburgh hours out of it. You need to start taking a cut out of.
If I see that joke anywhere by that person, but oi.
You're splitting your bill with me.
But I think we'll wind up there. So give us what's the socials where people can find you, and I'll link them all in the podcast
on Instagram at Dipak_Patel_comedy. If you want to see my sketches, go on YouTube. I think it's either at Dipako, Dipako.
Yeah.
Or it might be Dipak_Patel_comedy again.
I'll find it and I'll link it. But we'll leave this bit in.
Difficult to find. Yeah.
And that's it.
It's been a pleasure.
Cool.
I'm so desperate for a wee as well. Oh my God.
Well, I just
so like 2 minutes. I've had my coffee and my water, and now my bladder's like, ah!
This is why I wanted you on here. So much fun.
To piss myself in more than one way.
I will wind up now by saying you can find us on Instagram at Open Mic Comedy Pod. You can find us on all the W's at openmiccomedypod.com. We are, whichever platform you're listening to this on, please give us a nice little 5-star review and share it with anybody you think will find it useful. It's been an absolute pleasure to have Mr. Patel on the stage today.
It's been an absolute honour.
And until next time, I'll speak to you all again very soon.